So I was not planning on making a video on this specific topic, considering the fact that the Jaguars regular season and postseason, to an extent, is not over by the time I am recording this video. But first of all, hello everyone. If you don't know who I am the Cubone. Thank you all for clicking on this video. Of course, I am always wearing teal and black like a Duval cap because I'm here to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. I didn't even have an opportunity really to change up my whiteboard from my previous video. It's still going to stay up here the way it is because wildcard weekend is coming up. The LA Chargers, the 5th seed LA Chargers, will be playing against the 4th seed Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm super excited about that game. I do have a video about that matchup and my prediction of how that game is going to turn out. But this video, as you can clearly see from the title of said video and the thumbnail of said video, this is going to be about this whole storyline that's been building over the last couple of hours or last couple of days about the Jacksonville Jaguars potentially being in the market for DeAndre Hopkins. And I have a lot of mixed reactions and feelings and emotions, if you will, about this news, about DeAndre Hopkins wanting to be a Jacksonville Jaguar, if you will. If you don't know the story, news came out that the Cardinals were, who have fired their head coach. They're going to have a new general manager. They're going to basically wanting a clean slate, starting this 2023 season. And to do so, they're going to need some draft capital and draft assets. And they also want to get rid of old veterans from the previous regime. And DeAndre Hopkins is one of them. And DeAndre Hopkins, of course, 10-year veteran, spent most of his career with the Houston Texans, was recently traded a few years ago to the Arizona Cardinals, and has played very well for both the Texans and the Cardinals, especially with the Texans. And when healthy, he is one of the top receivers in the NFL. I don't think that is even a debate. Everyone knows that. But something came up, though. It was like a radio show in Arizona, a sports radio show, that not only reiterated the fact that the Cardinals were interested in trading away DeAndre Hopkins, but apparently because DeAndre Hopkins has a no-trade clause in his contract, that he has to pick the destination where he wants to be traded to if he were to be traded. And apparently the two teams that are in the discussion, if you will, that he has apparently brought up, that these are the destinations I want to go to, well, coincidentally, they're playing against each other this weekend. The LA Chargers and the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I've seen some mixed reactions from the Jaguars fan base about potentially doing it. Not necessarily because, DeAndre Hopkins, he's not worth it. Everyone knows he's worth it. But it's more or less the fact that the way the Jaguars roster is currently constructed, they don't have a whole lot of cap space to work with going into this next particular offseason. After so, in 2024 and 2025, they should have, a plethora amount of cap space to work with. But in this particular offseason in 2023, that is upon them, they're going to be pretty tight against the cap. They're going to have to cut players more than likely like Shaq Griffin. Roy Robertson-Harris might have to be a cap casualty. Jamal Agnew might have to be a cap casualty, which I really hope that isn't the case because I really like Jamal Agnew. Rayshawn Jenkins is someone who has a big cap hit. He may be on someone that, again, I really like Rayshawn Jenkins. I like what he's done with the team as of recent. But he might be someone, because of the cap situation, they might have to let go. There's also stuff like they need to figure out whether or not they're going to re-sign Evan Ingram. Are they going to re-sign DeJuan Smoot and Arden Key? Are they going to re-sign Jawan Taylor? there's a whole, are they going to extend Josh Allen? There's so many different things internal with the Jacksonville Jaguars that it's not really like major issues per se, but it's like stuff that they have to prioritize first before going after one DeAndre Hopkins. Now, while I'm not 100% certain that this is going to happen, that they are going to trade for DeAndre Hopkins, I'm going to make the argument to do so. All right? And, the draft capital, the whole thing about, but he's going to cost too much money because of his contract situation. And, they're going to have to give up a bunch of draft capital to go get him and all this and that. You have to understand this, folks. The Jacksonville Jaguars, ladies and gentlemen, okay, this team somehow ended up on DeAndre Hopkins' radar. This never happens with star players. They don't usually want to go to Jacksonville unless they are being paid enormous amounts of money, being overpaid to come to Jacksonville. That is the norm here for this franchise. The fact that someone like DeAndre Hopkins is willing to go to a place like Jacksonville and might, in my opinion, might potentially take a pay cut to do so, to play with someone like a Trevor Lawrence and play for someone like a Doug Peterson, speaks volumes to how much of a culture change this team has gone through over the first year of Doug Peterson's tenure. And again, like the whole thing with the contract situation that DeAndre Hopkins is in, they could easily probably, I don't know too much about how these restructuring contracts usually work, but if in fact it gets restructured to being a lot of the cap hit gets turned into a signing bonus, the owner of the Jaguars, Shah Khan, is one of the more spending happy owners, if you will. He's more than willing to spend the money to get players into Jacksonville. So that part doesn't really worry me. And the whole thing about, he's up there in age and all this and that, he's got 2 years left in his contract. He's going to be under contract for 2023 and 2024. If you're really that worried, you can easily just not extend him and just, get as much value as you can out of him in those 2 years and then move on. The reason I think you need to potentially make this kind of move is that the Jacksonville Jaguars will not be in this situation for a long time. What I mean by that is that they have the advantage of being a team that has a rookie quarterback playing at a very high level. And because you have a rookie quarterback playing at a very high level, you're not paying that rookie quarterback a lot of money, and you won't have to for a few years. In fact, by the time DeAndre Hopkins' contract is expired, that's when more than likely they're going to have to actually pay Trevor Lawrence the money anyhow. So, and a guy like DeAndre Hopkins doesn't become available that often. I know last offseason there was guys like Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill and Amari Cooper that got traded and all this and that, but for the most part, a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, a top 10 wide receiver in this league, easily is not available on the trade market. So I think this is probably a prime opportunity to help Jacksonville push themselves, elevate themselves, if you will, above a team like Cincinnati, Buffalo, dare I say Kansas City, to being one of the top teams in the AFC. I mean, think about this. They already have Calvin Ridley. They have Christian Kirk. They have Travis Etienne. Imagine if they added a DeAndre Hopkins and they re-signed Evan Ingram. My goodness. That is a plethora of weapons that I don't think any defense would want to go up against. all in all, it will be interesting to see what actually happens with DeAndre Hopkins this offseason, because he's more than likely not going to be an Arizona Cardinal for the foreseeable future. I personally would like to see DeAndre Hopkins as a Jacksonville Jaguar. I think he would too, in particular, because that means he gets to play the Houston Texans, a team he used to play for twice in the season, and he probably wants to stick it to him really badly. But at the same time, I want the Jacksonville Jaguars, Trent Baalke, I want you to be responsible with this roster. Be sure that you re-sign your players first, bring back your own core guys, and then once you do that, and you restructure some contracts and free up some cap space, then you can potentially go after DeAndre Hopkins. Because I know there's some people who say, well, DeAndre Hopkins, he's up there in age and you don't want him, blah, blah, blah. To me, this is how I feel. I think DeAndre Hopkins, an acquisition of DeAndre Hopkins, along with someone like Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones, and Christian Kirk, who we already have, I think that core group of guys for Trevor Lawrence takes this team from being someone that's pretty good in the AFC to potentially representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. But that's just me. That's just me. With that being said, folks, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Where do you think DeAndre Hopkins will actually end up? And I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Go Jags.